Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. If you're not using the app, make sure you get on that today. And today we talk with one of our favorites here on the podcast. The great Joe Thomas, the Hall of Famer, is with us. Joe, how are you? Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I'm doing great, Bull. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and Joe was so nice during, before we started this interview, I was asking him for advice on where to go in Europe because my family and I are making our first trip, and he's now a veteran of Europe after spending some time in Germany as a coach. And I'm sure I assume you've gone before, but like before you were there?
Yes. Yep. We traveled a little bit in Europe already. So we had some experience under our belt before we moved over there.
Right. That's cool. And, it's always great to talk sports with you, but it's also great to talk food with you. And Hall of Fame Farms seems to be doing very well. I know you had a chance to meet the president and everything. So you're a big man now. And you were a big man in the football industry. Now you're a big man in the beef industry.
Yeah, things are going great. It's been a lot of fun. Our mission's been single-minded focus on, can we raise the best, healthiest beef on planet Earth? We raise Japanese Wagyu out in Wisconsin, and we think we're doing some pretty good stuff, and we're getting a lot of notice. So it's been fun seeing kind of the expansion from just selling online to now being in restaurants to now being in some venues, pro and college teams. So it's been an exciting growing period. A lot of things that I'm learning every single day, but it keeps it fun, gets me a reason to get out of bed every morning.
How much money do you make off of your former teammates?
Well, they are big eaters. As you know, you got to target the right customers. So when you're 340 pounds and you're used to eating a lot of beef, those are your best customers.
That's right. Speaking of which, your friend and your teammate, Joel Bitonio, decided to put an end to his career. I know you guys are close. I know you've talked to him. I think I remember you saying last year that you had said to him, hey, if you can still do it, do it. He decided to come back for one more year. I'm sure there was we know the Browns were interested in bringing him back. I'm sure there were contending teams that were interested in him. What'd you think about his decision in the end?
Yeah, after talking with him, I think the timing was right. He probably could have, squeaked out maybe another season because he played great last year, but the years they add up, the games, the snaps, and the body just isn't always feeling amazing, even though you are able to get out there on Sunday, because that's kind of the last thing you're able to give up on is the playing on Sundays. For me, the last couple of years, barely ever practiced. Couldn't even really get out on the practice field because my knee was so bad. And I think it steals a lot of that joy because you don't get to be with your teammates quite as much on that practice field, going through the walkthroughs, the grind that you go through in training camp when you're practicing every day, and the struggles and the soreness and all those things. I think that really adds to it, right? It's not always fun when you're playing football, but the totality of the experience is what makes it memorable and what's binding you and bonding you with those teammates for a lifetime. And so when you start losing some of that, I think it's time to hang him up. And for Joel, it was really important for him to be able to say, just like I did, that he only played for the Cleveland Browns, that he started his career, he finished it there, because that's something that not a lot of guys can say. So even though, to your point, that he did have opportunities to go play elsewhere, he was happy to retire as a Brown. And I think the Browns fans were happy about that, just like I was, that they can call Joel Bitonio only theirs and that he never finished somewhere else.
Unfortunately, that's not the case with Myles Garrett, of course. And I saw you post a video when the trade happened, and I really agreed with your sentiment. It's hard when you trade a player of that caliber. That would have been, it's just there's almost no equivalent, because the guy might be, the guy's in the conversation for the greatest defensive player of all time. Certainly in modern times, he's the best. But the Browns were in a position where it made sense. What do you think about we won't know for sure until they use those draft picks on players, and we'll see who those players turn out to be. But on paper, what they got in return, it seems like you think they did pretty well.
Yeah, I think they did pretty well. I think there's significant risk when you are taking a player who is, as you mentioned, one of the greats of all time at any position. Maybe I called him the greatest defensive player of all time. I'll stand by that.
Yeah.
but he is getting up there in age. It's starting to get into double digits. There's a lot more risk of injury, and then you don't know how much longer he's going to be able to play. So that's obviously factored into the value of the trade. And I think what the Browns got from the Rams, getting Jared Verse, a first, a second, and a third, is really strong. And I think too, when you look at a trade, it's like, where are the Rams right now versus where are the Browns? And the Browns are clearly not in contention this year for a Super Bowl. They're not going to say it, of course, but we know it. If you don't have a clear quarterback and you have a controversy about who's going to be the quarterback going into training camp, you're probably not competing and contending for the Super Bowl. So that was kind of the whole point of that little selfie video that I put out was, hey, look, emotionally it kills you, right? To lose Myles, to not be able to have him to cheer for on Sundays. But you know what? I feel like as fans, we've already lost if we're just worried about the players that we get to cheer for, and we're not even thinking that we can win a championship and that we can win the game, right? And I fall into that trap too. Like at the end of last season, the reason you're watching is because of Myles. It's not because you want to win the game anymore, but I'm not willing to give up on the fact that we're still trying to win championships. We're still trying to win games. And so I think it was a good reality check for me and maybe the fan base, like where we are and what we need. And even though we love Myles, it's the best situation for us and for the Rams to be able to make this swap, to get a younger up-and-coming stud pass rusher like Jared Verse, and then build draft picks for maybe next year or the year after, when we feel like we do have a complete team. We know that this is maybe a roster that gives us an opportunity to compete for the division and then get into the playoffs and make some noise.
Now, maybe this is not a good comparison because Jed Wills, to this point, hasn't had a very good career. But obviously, when the Browns drafted Jed Wills, there was a ton of pressure on him because he's replacing you. Well, now it's the same thing with Jared Verse. Now, Jared Verse, his first 2 years in the league, has been a very good player. But very good or not, he's not Myles Garrett, and fans should not expect him to be Myles Garrett. How does he deal with that? And what would you advise him in terms of dealing with that pressure?
I think the first thing he's got to do is talking to the media and saying, look, I'm not Myles Garrett. Nobody's Myles Garrett. Yeah. So don't think I'm coming in here to replace him or to be almost as good as him, because I'm a different player. Even though they do play similar positions, Jared's going to be utilized differently. And you hope that the collective of the defensive line playing with rush and coverage and how they fit with the linebackers allows him to have an amazing Pro Bowl, All-Pro, maybe Hall of Fame career. Yeah. But you'll never be Myles Garrett. So I think the sooner you can just stop it right there, any conversations about comparing him to Myles Garrett, the better. I look back on my own career when I got drafted 3rd overall. Adrian Peterson was there, and I think he went 7th or so to the Vikings. Yeah. And, like 2-3 years into my career, I'm getting compared to Adrian Peterson, who at that point, best offensive player in football outside of the quarterback. And so it's like, well, that's not really fair. I don't even play the same position, but you're going to have that. And I think it's got to be water off a duck's back if you're Jared. Like, you know what? Those comparisons are always going to be out there because that was the trade. But in the end, you just got to be the best version of yourself. And he just wants to be the best Jared Verse that he can be for the Browns defense. And hopefully that's above and beyond anything that we've expected.
Joe, on the other side of this, you mentioned like the Rams. Obviously, the Rams are a Super Bowl contender. Unlike the Browns, they have one of, if not the best quarterback in the league in Matthew Stafford. Supposedly, Aaron, I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly Aaron Donald is now talked about coming out of retirement because he'd like to play with Myles. What they've on their roster, for whatever it's worth, they play a 3-4, so they're listing him as an outside linebacker. I don't know how much that matters in this day and age of the NFL, but like, what do you expect? Like, how? Part of me thinks he's going to be even better there because it's a better team, but I don't know if that's even possible. What are your expectations for him?
I think Myles is going to break the sack record again this year because he's with a much better team, right? Yeah. And we talked about how amazing it was that he broke the sack record last year on a team that was losing. Yeah. Because typically sacks are coming when your team is ahead in the second half, because now the other team has to hold on to the football. They have to push it down the field throwing it, and they can't really double team you as much. But Myles, he never had those opportunities. He was just consistently beating double teams and getting to the quarterback in 2 seconds or less, which is just incomprehensible, the ability that he has to get to the quarterback and make offensive linemen look like turnstiles, even great offensive linemen. So I think playing now on a better team with Matthew Stafford, if he can stay healthy and giving them that lead, like he's going to have even more opportunity. And I think he will break that sack record this season.
Are you buying this Aaron Donald rumors at all, or?
I'm not buying it. However, that guy can pop off the couch middle of the season after eating a pack of bonbons and Hot Pockets, and he can still get 5 sacks in 5 games
my
because he's
gosh.
just that level of physical freak. He's
Yeah.
comparable to Myles Garrett at his position. Very few players have ever played it with that level of violence and physicality and strength and power. Like, he's one of one, and I'm sure it's probably exciting for him. But when he probably shows up, if he ever did show up, and he watches those guys sweating out there, and he's feeling, I don't know, the couch is pretty comfortable right now watching those games on Sunday.
Yeah, you're 100% right when it comes to him, because in that Super Bowl when they beat the Bengals, if they don't have Aaron Donald, the Bengals win that game, no doubt in my mind. Do you think that's the case?
Totally. I was actually on the sideline working for NFL Network in that game. We did the post-game show, and I remember just thinking the same thing you did. Like, Aaron Donald is unblockable. And
it's amazing.
Right now, like, obviously the quarterback's your most important, but outside of that, like, Aaron Donald completely changed that game because he was unblockable, and he gave the Bengals no opportunity to push the ball down the field on the last drive of the game. I mean, Burrow has plenty of ability to be able to go the length of the field and score a touchdown 8 times out of 10 in that situation, but he didn't have the time. And game, I think, if I remember correctly, ended on an Aaron Donald sack, and he sealed it right around midfield. So without a doubt, like, those pass rushers are your closers. Like, if I think about it, your quarterbacks, those guys set the table and they make the meal. And then your pass rushers, they're the guys bringing that espresso after dinner with that delicious chocolate piece of cake or something, because those are the guys that close it out for you.
Yeah, I want to talk about another player you know very well, and that's Nick Chubb. Obviously, Nick was a great player, and like a lot of running backs, 5 or 6 great years, and then he had an injury. He tried to come back. He hasn't been the same player. He was with Houston. I don't know if he has any opportunities. He hasn't officially retired. I don't know. For me, I didn't play. You did. I feel sad about Nick Chubb. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe it's just the way it is. But I'm like, this guy was so great, and I feel like 2 years later he's forgotten. Not by Browns fans, but like, it sucks. I hate that. But you played. I didn't. So what's that like from the outside now?
It sucks. It's one of the most brutal positions in football.
Yeah.
And the challenge is, as a running back, most guys are relying on their quickness and their speed to be elusive, so that the tacklers are barely getting an arm on them, or maybe completely missing, and then they can use that speed. And the problem is, it's a game of inches, right? You lose just a fraction of speed or quickness. Now the guy that maybe just got a glove on you and barely slowed you down is slowing you down significantly, because he's got that little bit of extra edge on his angle when he's coming into the hole to make the tackle, or on the sideline as he's trying to make an angle tackle. And so just that little bit of loss of explosion, of speed, of quickness makes a huge difference at that position, more than any other position. I think about guys like Anquan Bolden. He was never a super fast receiver, but you could throw it anywhere near him, he was going to catch the ball. So speed wasn't something that he relied on a ton, and so he could play a super long time. Frank Gore is like the only running back that I can think of that played forever, but he never really relied on speed, right? He was just really hard to tackle. He got those 4 and 5 yard runs. He could churn them out. He could find the crack. He could kind of run the crease of the running game. But there's few players that are like that. And, you think about Nick Chubb and the great career he had in Cleveland, his ability to get outside on those crack cheese with the guards and the centers, Joel Bitonio leading the band out to the left. And he would break free from the first level, and then he was gone because he was so fast. But as soon as you lose a little bit of that, and with all the injuries, especially the knee injuries that he had going way back to college, like, it's really, really, really hard to come back as you get older from significant knee injuries like that and maintain the same level of speed and quickness that you had before.
It really shows you just how crazy it is what Frank Gore did. You mentioned him. I mean, Adrian Peterson played to an old age for a running back. Emmitt Smith played pretty long time too. The guys that can last that long at that position, I mean, that's insane. It's really hard to believe when guys can do that. Joe, I do want to ask about the quarterback situation, because of course the fans will get mad at me if I don't bring that up. From an outside perspective, as a non-player, I look at this situation, and I'm not personally a huge believer in Shedeur Sanders, but we haven't seen enough. I want to see more. To me, Deshaun Watson, I understand why they made the trade. I was totally in support of it. But it's been 6 years since he's been good. He's had a million injuries, and he is a free agent at the end of the year. I, from the outside, don't see a point in playing Deshaun Watson. But as a former player who blocked for 7,000 quarterbacks, and most of them were not very good. Is it just as simple for the players as, listen, it doesn't matter if he's not going to be here. If he's the best guy, let him play? Or do players think at all about, like, what's the point of that?
They might think about what's the point a little bit, but from a player standpoint, you want the best guy in that moment. Whether you're an offensive lineman, you want the guy who understands the defense. He can see the defense. He knows where he's supposed to be. He knows his reads. He's calling out the audibles. He can see the defense. He's calling out the protections, because that helps me, and it unlocks me to be able to do my job.
Right.
If you don't have that, then it's just helter skelter. Like, it's chaos out there, and you're trying to fix things on the line of scrimmage, and it affects everybody. From a receiver standpoint, obviously it's even more significant, because you got to get the ball. The ball needs to be thrown to the right guy on time. And I think Shedeur is going to get there, but for Deshaun, he's probably going to be more ready at the beginning of the season. So I was in support, at least at the beginning of training camp, make him the starter, allow everybody to get comfortable there. And I think there's an important point that, the Browns aren't going to say, but at some point, we assume there will probably be a quarterback change during the season. There usually is, right? Yes. And so once you make that change, then you kind of stick with that guy, right? And so I think if they would have started with Shedeur, nobody wants to see them make a change. But at some point, if things aren't going well at that quarterback position, you have to make that change and try to provide that spark. And you want to see them making the change to the younger guy. You don't want to see them making the change from Shedeur when maybe he's not ready to show what he can do and he's not ready to get that growth at the beginning of the season. Then you change it to Deshaun. It's like, man, we already gave up on Shedeur. Whereas if you give Shedeur almost like a rookie, like you treat Aaron Rodgers out in Green Bay or Jordan Love, or, hey, sit, learn, let's get you better. Let's improve all of your footwork, your mechanics, understanding of the defense, how you fit in this offense. And then when you're ready, then we can move you in there. And then now you have that opportunity to continue to grow down the stretch. And then we can really find out if you're the guy long-term. So I think it was a wise move, at least to start with Deshaun Watson going into training camp and allow Shedeur to prove it and earn that job from Deshaun, which, I mean, I expect it to happen at some point during the season. I don't know if it's training camp or down the line, but you love when a guy earns that job and it feels like he's done it. And then everybody on that team can talk to the media and talk to the fans about, hey, he's looked great in practice. He's grown so much, blah, blah, blah. And then you feel really good with a confidence level in that quarterback that he feels that he can go out and be his best.
What do you think about the two wide receivers the Browns drafted here in the first couple of rounds? See a lot of promise with those guys?
Yeah, I'm excited about those guys. I mean, I think that on offense, we just had no weapons, right? Like, we really, really struggled to go down the field whatsoever. And so to be able to pick up a couple explosive guys, give them to Todd Monken, see how they can fit into that offense, I think that was really one of our biggest priorities. It was like left tackle, and then who are the receivers that we're going to have out there? Because it would be really hard to really judge Shedeur when he does get his opportunity if he doesn't have weapons to be able to throw the football to.
Right. Speaking of offensive line, let's wrap it up with this. Spencer Fano is the next guy to get a shot. He obviously was a high pick. Seems like an unbelievable human being from what I know of him. What do you think? I mean, he looks I said the only concern I had from an outside perspective is he not big enough to play left tackle? I don't know. Is that a concern at all, or is that nothing?
I mean, you always want bigger. It's always better, right? Like, if I could have been 400 and moved the same way I do, that would have been awesome. But I think, you don't have to be big to be a great left tackle. If you have the technique, if you can bend your ankles, your knees, your hips, have leverage, move quickly, get on your opponent, using your hands, having really strong hands, independent hands to be able to strike and keep your opponent off balance. Like, that's what's important. I mean, I was 300 pounds as a rookie, 295. Like, I really struggled to keep the weight on. By the point of my career, I was 310, 315. And, I was more than heavy enough. And then towards the end, I was losing a little bit of weight to try to keep some weight off my knee. And it was no issue whatsoever, because after you've learned the technique and the leverage and you're plenty powerful, that extra weight, it's not really necessary. It's good if you have it, but it's not really necessary. And it's not really like a qualifier to be able to play that position.
Okay, let's wrap up with HallOfFameFarms.com, because I love talking about steak too. And first of all, what do you have to say about people that eat well-done steaks? I mean, that's completely inappropriate, isn't it?
It's ill-advised. The great thing is my family, God bless them, they were always well-done people. Like, my son would order a filet well done. I'm like, geez, what are we doing here? I mean, come on, man. There's a burger on the menu if you really want it. But the great thing about the Hall of Fame Wagyu is because of the high level of intermuscular fat, the marbling, and the way that Wagyu fat, just genetically, it melts at a lower temperature than your body temp.
Okay.
He all of a sudden became a huge medium rare guy. And like everybody in my family became the new congregation preaching from the Hall of Fame Wagyu Bible because the thing that people, I think a lot of times don't like about eating a rare plus or medium rare or even medium sometimes is they feel like it's chewy, right? Because you need that extra heat to break down regular Angus beef to be able to like break it down in your mouth. And they don't like that texture. That's a big thing with kids I've noticed is like the texture. But with the Wagyu, because it melts in your mouth, you don't have that texture problem. And so now I can say that I've successfully
nicely done
competed and won as a father, because now not only my wife but my children, they love their medium rare steaks, and they can go to a steakhouse and not embarrass themselves or the chef by asking for that well plus filet mignon.
Are you a rare man or are you medium rare?
I am. I mean, it's funny because like obviously I eat a lot of beef. Like we raised a lot of beef. I love beef. Our Wagyu is amazing. It's second to none. Not only just the taste and the tenderness, but just the things that you can taste, the terroir. It's like a fine wine. And so I've actually started eating some of it raw. I don't advise it, but I want to be able to actually taste all the finishing blend that we put in there, like the feed, and I need to be able to know the difference, just like a sommelier or a winemaker, right? You got to be able to taste that stuff, and if you cover it up with too much stuff, it's harder to taste. So I've started eating some of our steaks raw just to make sure I can taste that flavor. If we're adjusting the Hall of Fame finishing ration that we're feeding our cattle, like I just want to know if that's something that actually comes through in the beef. But when I go to a restaurant, if it's a fattier cut like a ribeye, I'll go medium rare, right? Because I do like some of that char, that breakdown. But if I am eating something that's a little bit leaner, if I'm going back to the like the picanha, the famous Brazilian cut, like I'll go medium rare or rare plus. And I really enjoy the Wagyu, especially like a little bit less well done, because it just doesn't need all that heat to be able to break the fat down.
All right, last thing on this, because this is actually the longest of my life I've gone without a steak, because I had gastric bypass surgery about 3 months ago, and it was just advised not to eat it for 3 months, and I'm thinking about having a steak for the first time in almost 4 months. If I go to halloffameffarms.com, I'm a ribeye guy generally, but should I start with something else as to eating steak for the first time with like a new stomach?
Yeah. So one of the big reasons we started raising Wagyu is because not just your big three middles, not just your filet, your ribeye, your tender are amazing and tender. So all of those chef cuts, we call them, which that'd be like your picanha, your Denver, back to the bavettes, like those cuts that come off the shoulder and off the back of the cow, the sirloin, like they're amazing, and they have a little bit extra beefy flavor, but they're still super tender. So for your very first steak, I would say either go with the flat iron, which is an unsung hero, or the bavette is like, if you're gonna go back into the steak world, like to me, those are the two best. And actually, you have to send me your information so I can send you a box. I gotta send you so you can enjoy the very first steak after your gastric bypass surgery. It's got to be the Hall of Fame.
I was gonna go to the website myself, but I appreciate you taking care of it. We'll take care of you. I'll have it sent to you right away. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. I can't wait to have one of your steaks. It's
got to get
amazing.
The full review, man. I can't wait. Yes. Very proud of that.
Everybody go to halloffameffarms.com. Joe does everything top of the line. There's no half-ass with Joe Thomas. He took his family, his football, and now his food. It's all serious business. Everybody go to halloffameffarms.com. Thanks, Joe, for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Adam.
We'll talk to you next time, folks, on the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. We'll see you later. Thanks, guys, for producing today. We'll see you next time.